Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection, came forward and put this question to Jesus, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us, if someone's brother dies leaving a wife but no child, his brother must take the wife and raise up descendants for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman, but died childless. Then the second and the third married her, and likewise all the 7 died childless. Finally, the woman also died. Now at the resurrection, whose wife will that woman be? For all 7 had been married to her." Jesus said to them, "The children of this age marry and remarry, but those who are deemed worthy to attain to the coming age and to the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. They can no longer die, for they are like angels, and they are the children of God, because they are the ones who will rise. That the dead will rise, even Moses made known in the passage about the bush, when he called out, 'Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' And he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive." The Gospel of the Lord.
In this gospel reading here, there's kind of an irony with this reading here. The Sadducees are talking about and they're questioning whether or not there's life after death, and what's going on here is actually in the Old Testament. We look at the first reading from the second book of Maccabees, is where they're proclaiming, in Israel and the Jewish community is starting to become aware that there might be life after death. There might be some sort of afterlife. See, before all this time, before Jesus' time, they believed in what they call Sheol. Sheol is not hell. It's just simply like a place of the dead where you go. And they didn't know whether it was asleep or what it was. And so they were talking about here in the book of Maccabees about the resurrection and getting their bodies back. And that's what we believe as Christians. We will get our bodies back. It's just not like an afterlife, like angels were floating around and we don't have a body, nobody can see us, and forever and ever that way. In the end, when Jesus comes, we're going to actually get our bodies back in a glorified state. And the irony about all this is that the Sadducees here, they're testing Jesus because particularly the Sadducees do not believe in the afterlife. They do not believe in any angels. Angels to them do not exist. And what's happening here is the scenario that he puts forward actually is historical. It actually happened in the book of Tobit in the Old Testament. That's the irony of it all. So what happened in Tobit, the book of Tobit, I encourage you to read the book of Tobit. It's really an awesome book. It's a fun book to read. That book starts with Tobias, who is he's sleeping underneath the tree, and the bird in the tree poops in his eyes, and he goes blind. Sounds like a really fun book to read. It's like 25 pages. So it's hilarious, and it's got a great story of where Saint Raphael, the archangel, comes and he heals Tobias, but also helps Tobiah, his son, to find a bride. And the bride he finds is a woman who married 7 different brothers, and they all died. So it's what actually happened. That's the irony of this story in this gospel message. So the Sadducees are pulling out the story which actually happened, and then Jesus is pointing out to them the way of the error. Now, what that begs for us, though, is what does happen after life? You know, and the church teaches about the 4 last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. The 4 last things. Hopefully you remember those things, because a lot of people don't believe in that anymore. They just believe in the one, death. And they don't believe, they don't know that there is a God out there that will give us a judgment. And that judgment will determine whether we go to heaven or hell. And so that's what we got to remind ourselves of. And of course, now when we look at this first reading, all right, so as human beings, when we fear the 4 last things, we're like death, judgment, heaven, or hell. You know, we kind of go in that direction. And we're like, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to worry about that. That sounds pretty dark. Well, not to these brothers in the book of Maccabees. They're not thinking death as darkness. How many saints have died and never thought of death as darkness, but birth into eternal life, and actually a fulfillment of the promise that God makes to us? Now, doesn't that just turn our whole world upside down? To think of death, of seeing the glory of God and rejoicing and praising His name forever. And to rejoice in that and to be exalted in that ourselves. That we get to see the face of God and live. That gives you a different perspective. And this is what these 7 brothers, now get this. 7 brothers. 7. Where have we heard that number before? In the gospel reading and in the book of Tobit. Kind of an irony there too. You know, you stop and you just think about these things that we have in the Bible. So you got these 7 brothers who are being arrested and tortured. They're actually being tortured for their faith. They will not eat the pork that God has commanded them not to eat at that time. And they would rather die than not eat pork. Yeah, I don't know how many of us would do that. I mean, pork, most of us would say, oh, it's just pork, come on, give me a break. Well, it's God's law that God gave the Jewish people. They must be obedient to that. And it's their way of being faithful to that. Oh, come on, Father. No, yeah. Just like the 10 Commandments are sins and they're not requests by God. That's why our duty to help and support the church is really necessary. And not just a nice, warm, fuzzy thing. As long as I feel full, warm, and fuzzy, I'm going to support the church. But no. God's ways are God's ways. And we give ourselves to God as these 7 brothers and their mother gave themselves to God. It was kind of interesting. I was at the Women of Christ conference, and Kimberly Hahn gave a really great talk. And actually, not to stun Scott, but I think Kimberly's better, actually. and she was great. And she gave the story of another woman who was like playing God there, and then she was like playing the woman. She's like, Lord, I give you everything. And God's like, everything? It's like, yeah, really? Yeah. And it's like, oh. And then she's like, I'll give you this money. I'll give this money. It's like, okay. Thank you. Good. And it's like, okay. It's like, I see you got more there. Okay. I'll give you one. I got my checkbook, I guess. Checkbook? You got a checkbook? Can I have that too? I don't know. I guess I got my credit cards. Credit cards? You got credit cards? Yeah. I suppose I got to talk to my husband about that too. Husband? You got a husband? Yeah, I want that too. I'll give you my husband. I don't know how I'm going to take care of the children. Children? You've got children too. Yeah, I got children. And I want them too. I'll give you my children. And he went on through everything. And then the car, the keys, the house. God wanted everything. And she's like, I guess, she had nothing. She's like, now I got a job for you to do. I got this great guy for you to take care of. Could you do that for me? Yeah, I can do that. I got these children too that need your help. And I need you to take care of them. They're mine. Okay, I'll take care of them. If you're going to take care of them, then I'll give you this checkbook and credit card and some of this money. You need to take care of them. And I need you to take care of this home for them too. You see, the story is everything we have is not ours. It's God's. They're just on loan. We can't take them to the grave. We can't take all these things with us. And our own really true possession is Jesus Christ himself. How God would be willing to give his very self to each and every one of us as a possession in our hearts. That's what he's entrusting to us. We have a calling. It's in heaven to be with God, so that not only can we possess him, but that he can possess us.